Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Powell. Let's get ready for Chapter 4 of Mr. Popper's Penguins. Chapter 4 is titled Captain Cook. "Papa!" shouted Janie and Bill together at the bathroom door. "What is it?" "It's a South Pole penguin sent to me by Admiral Drake." "Look," said Bill, "it's marching." The delighted penguin was indeed marching. With little pleased nods of his handsome black head, he was parading up and down inside the bathtub. "For such a big bird, he takes awfully small steps," said Bill. "And look at how shiny his black coat is," said Janie. The penguin got tired of marching. This time he decided to jump out of the tub onto the slippery curb. They could see his flippers, which were black and outstretched like sleeves of a tailcoat, with white underneath. "Look, look," said the penguin, practicing this new game all over again. "Look, look." "What's his name?" said Janie. It sounds like he's saying something like Cook. We'll call him Cook. Captain Cook." "Who is Captain Cook?" said Mrs. Popper. Uh-oh, she'd come in so quietly they hadn't heard them. "Why, the penguin," said Mr. Popper. "I was just saying that we'd name him after Captain Cook. He was a famous explorer who lived about the time of the American Revolution. He sailed all over places that no one had ever been before. He didn't actually get to the South Pole, of course, but he made a lot of important scientific discoveries about the Antarctic region. He was a brave man and a kind leader. So I think Captain Cook would be a very suitable name for our penguin here." "Well, I never," said Mrs. Popper. "Gork," said Captain Cook, suddenly getting lively again. With a flap of his flippers, he jumped from the tub to the washstand and stood there for a minute looking at the floor. Then he jumped down, walked over to Mrs. Popper, and started to peck at her ankle. "Stop him, Papa!" cried Mrs. Popper, running into the hallway with Captain Cook running after her, and Mr. Popper and the children following behind. In the living room she paused. So did Captain Cook, for he was delighted with the room. Now a penguin may look very strange in a living room, but a living room also looks very strange to a penguin. Even Mrs. Popper had to smile when they watched Captain Cook, with curiosity in his eyes. He dragged his little body around and strut from one chair to another, pecking at it to see what they were made out of. Then he turned and marched into the kitchen. "Maybe he's hungry," said Janie. Captain Cook immediately marched up to the refrigerator. "Gork?" he inquired, turning to slant his head wisely at Mrs. Popper and looking at her pleadingly with his white eye. "He certainly is cute," she said. "I guess I'll have to forgive him for biting my ankle. Anyway, he probably did only do it out of curiosity, and he is a nice, clean-looking bird." "Ork?" repeated the penguin, nibbling at the metal handle of the refrigerator door. Mr. Popper opened the door for him, and Captain Cook stood up very high and leaned his head back so he could see what was inside. Now that Mr. Popper's work was over for the winter, the icebox was not quite as full as usual, but the penguin did not know that. "What do you suppose he likes to eat?" said Mrs. Popper. "Let's see," said Mr. Popper as he removed all the food and then set it on the kitchen table. "Now then, Captain Cook, take a look." You can see all of their food out of the fridge. Wonder if any of it is something he'll want to eat. The penguin jumped up from the chair and from there onto the edge of the table, flapping his flippers again to recover his balance. Then he walked solemnly around the table between the dishes of food, inspecting everything with the greatest interest, though he touched nothing. Finally, he stood very tall and raised his beak, pointing at the ceiling, and made a loud, almost purring sound. "Ooh, ooh," he trilled. "That's a penguin's way of saying he's happy," said Mr. Popper, who had read about that in his Antarctic books. Apparently, however, what Captain Cook wanted to show was that he was pleased with their kindness rather than with their food. For now, to their surprise, he jumped down, didn't eat anything, and walked into the dining room. "I know," said Mr. Popper. "We ought to have some seafood or canned shrimp or fish or something. Or maybe he isn't even hungry yet. I've read penguins can go a month without food." "Mama, Papa, come see what Captain Cook has done," called Bill. Captain Cook had done it all right. He had discovered the bowl of goldfish on the dining room windowsill. By the time Mrs. Popper reached over to lift him away, he had already swallowed the last of the goldfish. "Bad, bad penguin," said Mrs. Popper, glaring down at Captain Cook. Captain Cook looked at the carpet and tried to make himself look small. "Oh, he knows he's done something wrong," Mr. Popper said. "Isn't he smart?" "Maybe we can train him," said Mrs. Popper. "Bad, naughty penguin, naughty Captain Cook," she said to the penguin in a stern voice. "Bad to eat goldfish." And she spanked him on his little black head. Before she could do that again, Captain Cook quickly walked out to the kitchen. There the Poppers found him trying to hide inside the open refrigerator. He was squatting under the ice cube tray, under which he could barely fit. His round, white-circled eyes looked at them mysteriously from the dimness inside the refrigerator. "I think this is probably the right temperature for him," said Mr. Popper. "We could let him sleep there at night." "But where will I put the food?" asked Mrs. Popper. "Oh, I guess we can just get another refrigerator or icebox for the food," said Mr. Popper. "Look," said Janie, "he's gone to sleep." Mr. Popper turned the cold control switch to its coldest so that Captain Cook could sleep more peacefully. Then he left the door a little bit open so that the penguin would have plenty of fresh air to breathe. "Tomorrow I will have the icebox service department send a man out to drill some holes in the door for air," he said. "And then he can put a handle on the inside of the door so Captain Cook can go in and out of his refrigerator as he pleases." "Well, dear me, I never thought we would have a penguin for a pet," said Mrs. Popper. "Still, he behaves pretty well on the whole, and he is so nice and clean. Perhaps he will be a good example for you and the children. And now I declare we must get busy. We haven't done anything but watch that bird, Papa. Will you please help me set the table and put out the beans for dinner?" "Just a minute," answered Mr. Popper. "I just happen to think that Captain Cook will not feel right on the floor of that icebox. Penguins make their nests on pebbles and stones, so I will just take some ice cubes out of the tray and put them under him. Then he will be more comfortable." All right, we have finished chapter 4, so now you have chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Stick around later and you'll see more chapters of Mr. Popper's Penguins. Have a good day and get outside for a while if you can.